Hello everyone, welcome back. It is a new day, a new sleigh, and a new video where I have something to say. And this is actually part 2 of my full rant review of Bonds of Hercules. Now initially I was not planning on splitting this video into 2 parts, but when I finished recording last time, I had 4 hours of unedited footage to go through. After editing everything, it was still 2 hours long. And I just thought, let's just cut it up. That'll be easier for everyone, especially me because I had to edit. It took 2 weeks to get everything edited down. It was a nightmare, honestly. But I'm just gonna jump right into the next part of the review. So if you haven't watched part 1, you might want to go back and do that now. As a general recap, I spent the first part of that video talking about the audiobook and the actual formatting of the book because I realized that Bonds of Hercules is not written in paragraphs, it's written in lines. And some people pointed out that maybe it was done on purpose to kind of emulate the epic format, which makes sense, but also just because I think it would be really audacious to try and write in the format of an epic. Bonds of Hercules is not Homer's The Odyssey. We can agree, right? That these things are not the same. Whatever, that is besides the point. I laid that out in part 1. Then I went to a beat for beat recap of chapters 1 through 22 of Bonds of Hercules. Really short summary. So essentially, Alexis is trying to use her powers. She gets inducted into the Chthonic military called the Assembly of Death. She has to go hunt titans. She's trying to make her marriage work. She was homophobic, acephobic. What were the other big things? She was just generally stupid. I left off part 1 talking about Alexis accidentally trying to kill her husbands, but then she felt bad about it and decided to stop killing her husbands, and she wants to make the marriage work with them. As you'll find out in just a minute, I immediately jump into the next part of the book where we go into the main plot, which is the SGC, aka the Spartan Gladiator Competition. This is where all the Chthonics, Alexis included, and all her love interests have to showcase their abilities for all of Sparta. As you will find out very quickly once you watch this video, I progressively just start losing my mind. I literally started ripping out my own hair. I turned into quite a mess. So if you thought part 1 was rough, it gets worse. And just wait till you find out what the plot twist at the end of this book is. It had me up in arms, let's just say. So without further ado, let's get into the rest of the video. We then flash forward to the next day. Alexis and company go to the Colosseum to witness the Initiation Massacre. This chapter seems to particularly hate men. In a rare instance when the men of this book are not doing anything bad, Nyx is weirdly cruel to them for seemingly no reason. The chapter starts with Nyx, who I'm gonna say has to be a self-insert or something. She is a weirdly humanoid character. She's supposed to be a snake. The concept of a snake having attraction to human men is weird to me. Where are you gonna put all that? So at the start of the chapter, Drex wakes up Alexis so that they can go to the initiation ceremony or whatever. And Nyx responds to Drex, who again is the only objectively nice dude in the book, and says, "Go off yourself," which I find funny because the book is supposed to be edgy, dark romance, and we couldn't say go kill yourself. Are we censoring ourselves a little bit? That's what we're too scared to say? On top of the fact that it's so unwarranted. Drex is a nice guy. If it was anyone else, I'd be okay, whatever. Then later on when they're at the Colosseum and they're having a weirdly normal conversation between Alexis, Karen, and Augustus, Nyx says, "Men should be seen and not heard," which is unwarranted because the men rarely aren't doing anything in this moment. They're having a normal conversation. And again, the blank should be seen and not heard is a charged statement because you have children should be seen and not heard, which is something that parents say when they abuse their children. Then we have the wicked comparison where it's animals should be seen and not heard, and that phrase is used to oppress an entire population. So to apply that to men in this instance when it's objectively unwarranted is a choice to say the least. It's a very common theme in this book, I'm sad to say. The interpretation of feminism throughout the entirety of this series is just hating men. It very much reads as if a conservative woman was trying to write from the perspective of a liberal feminist, and this is what they think it sounds like. She's speaking very hatefully towards the men in this book, and she's being cruel under the guise of feminist liberation. It's not a good look, and I'm going to explain it more in depth at the end of my review, but this concerns me. And this is only the start of the concerning behavior. So the chapter ends with the massacre is over. Yay, we have new Spartan students. Great. And Zeus announces that the SGC, which is supposed to take place a month from now, is actually getting moved to tomorrow. He also says that the Chthonics, that's Alexis and everyone, right, are going to be interrogated about Medusa because he believes that they have something to do with her breaking out of prison or that they're hiding her. So all the Chthonics are taken to a dungeon, and oh my god, Alexis is forced to share a room with her husbands, Karen and Augustus, and oh my god, there's only one bed. Alexis, because she's a strong, independent woman, insists on sleeping in the bathtub, and it becomes an entire argument. And this is also what I think is the skill issue, because I don't think we're just writing these like alpha male characters correctly, because the aggression is like so unwarranted and very much overdone. Alexis says, I'm gonna go sleep in the bathtub. Karen and Augustus are like, what? Say that again.
Say that again. Karen's voice cracked through the room. I won't sleep in the bed with— Shut up. Karen slashed his tattooed hand through the air.
And they're like out of breath, like red in the face, heaving at the concept of her sleeping in the bathtub. And I'm like, you are being so goddamn dramatic right now. It can still be an argument of like, no, you're not gonna do that. That's ridiculous. But it does not need you like huffing and puffing like that. God, you're gonna blow the whole house down. Relax. It continues. Sexual tension. They want to have sex with her, but they're like, this is probably not a good time to do that. We go into the first day of the SGC. Now, this thing is supposed to be a showcase of Chthonic power. The opening ceremony of the SGC requires that all Chthonics, minus Helen, show their tits? I am not lying, because apparently every year, this is a yearly thing, the Chthonics have to participate in this gladiator competition where they fight monsters. If they lose, they get a brand to the chest. So the ceremony starts with them showing their chest to see if they have any brands. And Zeus says, revelations, blah, blah, blah. He has this many brands, which is weird because why does he say revelations? Dialogue from Zeus in this chapter is very weird. So he goes one by one, announcing each Chthonic, how many losses they have, and how many monsters they have to fight. This is determined by 2 6-sided dice. Whatever number you roll is how many labors you have to fight, labors being the monsters. This chapter also concerns me, as I mentioned earlier, because we get a scene of Erebus, one of the other Chthonics. He reveals his chest for, again, this ceremony. And when he does so, he is catcalled by Nyx. And Alexis justifies this by saying, a little male harassment never hurt anybody. I don't think I need to explain to my very well-educated viewer that joking about sexually harassing anyone is not funny, especially given the accusations that is already facing the book community, because we already have the self-proclaimed queen of book talk harassing hockey players. Then we have women filling men's comment sections on the internet with the most lewd things imaginable that you would not say to another human being to their face. And yet they feel so comfortable saying it in a comment section because a man happens to be riding a motorcycle. Not to mention that just this year, there have been book-related events where the organizers have had to remind grown adults that they cannot touch people without their consent. That just because an author writes romance or erotic fiction, that doesn't mean that they're consenting to living out your fantasy. There is a very clear and growing problem of sexual harassment within the community, and I'm not saying that it's because of romance books. I would never make such a bold claim, because obviously that would be like saying that video games make kids violent. There are plenty of normal people that read romance and don't think that they can whip out the things that they're reading about in real life. But I am concerned when these very famous book talk books perpetuate the idea that sexually harassing anyone is okay, and thinking that it's okay because, hey, she's a woman. That's what I take issue with. You know, it's all fun and games to say that the book is bad and laugh at some of the cringy parts, but it's getting kind of weird. It's getting kind of dangerous weird. We also get the announcement in this ceremony that Achilles will be fighting without his muzzle. This will be the first time we see him without it. And we also learn that Kieran, during his first fight at 18 years old, had to fight 11 monsters and lost. So he has 11 brands on his chest. Now, what's funny to me is because Alexis's whole character trait is that she's really good at math. She likes probability, she likes numbers. Like, these are things that appeal to her. And yet they lay down a very specific detail. Augustus says that no one has ever rolled an 11 besides Karen, and no one has rolled a number bigger than 11 cents. So I did some math calculations. I know no one cares, but I care. With two 6-sided die, you have two possibilities of rolling an 11. You either roll a 6 and a 5 or a 5 and a 6. So out of 36 potential combinations, your chances of rolling an 11 are 2 out of 36 or reduced to 1 out of 18. That's roughly a 5% chance of rolling an 11. Now they tell us that no one has rolled an 11 since Karen did at the age of 18. He is currently 26. So just looking at the probability of none of the Thonics rolling a single 11 since Karen did at the age of 18, the chances of that happening are 10%. And that's under the best of circumstances, only looking at the past 9 years and only taking into account 4 Thonics. But if you take into account that there are more Thonics and that it's a longer lifespan of the SGC, the chances are probably even less. All I'm gonna say is that for a book that's really heavy on the mathematics, I would think that maybe we would pay attention to the mathematics. You had me pulling up my high school math class notes for this video. That's unforgivable. You made me do math. It's been years. Now it's Alexis's turn. She has to go up and see how many labors she will be up against. She has to show again her sternum, but she struggles to rip open her toga. So one of the other Olympians, Ajax, helpfully goes up to her and just rips it apart for her. So she's all exposed, very anime style. And Karen, who again is the protective husband, goes up and snaps Ajax's neck. Like, is that dude dead? I don't know, because these people are supposed to be immortal, but we never really say how immortal they are because they can die, but they also live forever. It's confusing. So Zeus rolls the dice, and Alexis makes it seem like he tampered with it and made it land a specific way. But the number that it lands on is, can you guess? 12. Again, the likelihood of no one having ever rolled a 12 before this point, I don't know how likely. So Hades and Persephone try to intervene and they tell Zeus to roll again. Mind you, Alexis knows that Zeus cheated when he rolled the dice, but she chooses not to say anything and just accepts the 12 labors. This is also where I'll mention that the interpretation of Zeus in this book scares me, because Hades and Persephone come down, right? And they are ripping Zeus a new one, and he is cowering in fear. The king of the gods has never, ever been portrayed as someone who cowers. No one has ever been so bold to say that. That's an interesting portrayal of this character. So that night, they are in the dungeon, they're sharing a bed, and Alexis says that she has something to confess to them and that it'll make them angry, but she doesn't say what it is that she needs to confess. We also get a one-off line, which again, just reads as though the editor was reminding the author that this was something she was supposed to remind us of. Karen and Augustus are like, wait, Alexis, you used to stutter, didn't you? Because that was a big thing in book 1. And they're like, why don't you stutter anymore? And she's like, oh, well, I feel safer on you guys, and that's why. And they're also like, wait, and now you swear. Like, when did that happen? Because in book 1, she couldn't swear. It wasn't that she didn't like to, she physically couldn't get it out of her. This portion of the book kicks off the most repetitive, god-awful formatting I've ever seen in my life. We go through all the days of the SGC, and it's all following the same template. Alexis wakes up with the guards like banging on her door saying, you have 2 seconds to get ready, you need to get out here right now. And then they all get out, they go to the Colosseum, they witness a fight, congratulations, yay, no one died. They then go to a symposium, which if you'll remember from book 1, the symposium is just a giant orgy. Once that is done, they go to bed and continue the cycle every single day of the SGC. It got to a point where it was so repetitive, and I imagine that even the author got bored writing it, that we just get a line from Alexis being like, yeah, I vaguely remember going to the symposium. Like, just a throwaway line as she flashes forward. And yet we still dedicate entire chapters to her watching every fight. This book could have been reduced so significantly if we just didn't include some of these fights. We didn't need to see all of these people. I'll touch on only the important stuff. So during day 1, Artemis has to fight 5 Cyclopes, that's correct. The main house leaders all have to fight 5, but their fights are supposed to be just ceremonial. They don't actually ever lose because they're just that powerful. So that night, Alexis goes to the symposium and she gets drunk and turns into a 12-year-old. Now, this was the chapter that I did a live reaction to, and she gets very upset that people aren't getting naked, which is so funny because in the same section, she's not able to say the words sex or fuck. This chapter also sees them getting bombarded by reporters asking about Medusa, which this was very weird to me because one of the reporters is talking to Karen, as I realized later, and said like, she's your sister. And I was so confused because I'm like, since when? They never say blatantly that Karen and Medusa are related. And the way that it's written when they bring up Medusa in the first part of the book, they mention Artemis, but they don't say directly that Artemis is Medusa's mother. It's very weird, and the only reason that you would know for sure that they're related is if you looked at the graph at the beginning of the book. Did I? No, because I had the audiobook, so I wasn't looking at the visual, and I didn't care. I didn't pay attention, okay? It's not the book part, it's supplemental. This chapter also sees Alexis having a bit with her calculator where she's like, "Dear diary, my husbands are awful," and they take her calculator and they're like, "Dear diary, Alexis is stubborn," and they just go back and forth like that. It's a very odd chapter, and I think it's just supposed to be like comedic relief, but it's very heavy-handed, and again, it just has no sense of comedic timing. The jokes that are in this book overall are for a very specific demographic. Perhaps the demographic that would clap when the plane lands, probably likes Taylor Swift, perhaps owns a copy of Eat, Pray, Love. Maybe they have a sign in their house that says Live, Laugh, Love, accompanied with a God bless this mess. I don't know. It's a very specific kind of humor that obviously does not land with me. Alexis runs into a siren at the symposium also. This is a different day. And this is one of the sirens that was from book 1 that she got to know. And she arranges with the siren to help her get speakers because she has a plan that she wants to take Zeus down. It sounds like she wants to confront him on something. She is planning something with Zeus. And up until this point, it sounds like it has something to do with him messing with her dice roll. But I'm sorry, I keep thinking to the end of the book and I'm like, how did she get away with leaving so many weird, ambiguous things in the beginning that only makes sense when you read the ending? Like, that's insane. There are also articles coming out about Alexis's animal protector, Fluffy Jr., because they're like, he's weird. I'm sorry. I just remembered. It's a whole thing because Fluffy Jr., her dog, has a lump on its back and he starts getting like lethargic. Augustus and Karen see it and tell her that her dog has cancer. Her magical dog in this Greek retelling has cancer. That's crazy. I'm so sorry. Like, that is just so unimaginable to me. Like, the idea that you could have Hercules and cancer in the same cinematic universe, like, of all the things to take out a mythological being, for it to be cancer. So news articles start coming out about her dog because apparently this is a very big concern for the people of Sparta. Then we get the news article again about the interrogations that surprised everyone despite the fact that Zeus announced it on a public stage. The amount of repetition that are in these chapters are crazy. Like, you have multiple scenes where it's literally like Alexis is in her seat and she's sweating because she's so nervous. And then Karen and Augustus are next to her and they're standing ramrod straight. I have to look up the amount of times that the phrase ramrod is used.
6 times BTW.
And then also there's a scene that is repeated throughout the chapters where Augustus or Karen will brush their thigh up against her and she like literally like that one vine, like she goes crazy from the touch of a thigh. So many of these chapters could have been deleted. Like, we didn't need to see all of this. The one thing I do want to mention is that we get to day 5 of the SGC where Aphrodite is fighting her Cyclopes. And for some reason, which I know the reason, which is misogyny, everyone thinks Aphrodite is gonna die. Need I remind everyone? I need to calm down. Aphrodite is the house leader. They already established that the fights with the house leaders are just symbolic, ceremonial, because they're so powerful, the Cyclopes have no chance against them. On top of the fact that when Aphrodite showed her chest, she had no brands. She had 0 losses against the Cyclopes. So why does everyone suddenly get nervous about her dying? I can tell you it's because she's the goddess of beauty. She's pretty. So certainly because she's the ideal woman, she can't fight. It's so crazy because we've had 4 battles before this and no one shared any kind of concern for the other Thonics. No one was afraid Artemis would die because she's a hunter, because she's uber powerful. She's a warrior. We were only worried about Aphrodite because they don't characterize her as being powerful, because powerful and pretty don't match. You're either one or the other. If you're pretty, you can't also be powerful, because if you're powerful, you're undesirable to men. That's crazy. Like, the disrespect to Aphrodite. Oh my God. Okay, first fight, Agatha, who gives a f. Now, the fights with the Chthonic children are particularly infuriating to me because Zeus is arranging who they fight, right? And then every time they come out with a competitor, he's acting surprised. The first fight is with Agatha, and one of her laborers comes out, and surprise, it's her boyfriend, Hermos, which I didn't know that was her boyfriend. I thought they were siblings because they're both half monster. I'm sorry. It sounded like they were both half Gorgon. I don't know. So they bring out Hermos, and all the Chthonics are like, how dare you? And Zeus is like, I don't know. It's just the labors. I don't know. He just appeared out of nowhere. You orchestrated this. This is your doing. Why are we making Zeus seem like a cowardly little boy? Like, Zeus? We also learn some important information about Zeus, which is like, we don't linger a lot on it. And I'm like, I need us to go back and talk about this because apparently Zeus in this world has the power of lightning, right? Okay. He can't use it offensively. He can only use his power when there's a storm outside. The other Olympians cannot use their powers offensively. So I'm like, Poseidon can't like shoot water. Demeter can't use plants or nothing. Apollo can't shoot a bow. None of the Chthonics are nerfed like this. I am so confused. How are the Olympians the ones in power if this is the case? How is Zeus the leader of the Federation if he cannot use his abilities without the presence of a thunderstorm? We skate by this way too fast for my liking. And honestly, this is like the most interesting part of the book. And I'm like, I need you to explain this. I need more information now. The word fisted is also used frequently. Just say they clenched their fist. Why fisted? Yeah, it's on SGC day 7 where they got a little lazy about writing out the symposium scene. Let's see if I can find it. So we get to the end of day 7 where Hermos is fighting and everyone is racist to him because he's part Gorgon. We're in Alexis's perspective and she says, time drifted away from me. I remembered sitting in the symposium. The rest was a blur. And then we just go to her at night sleeping in bed with her husbands. Like, bruh, even the author got tired of writing these scenes? Then why do I have to read them? The next big important thing I want to say. So on day 8, Patro is doing his battle. He wins. Great. He is then taken for interrogation. The next day is Achilles' day to fight. This is the day he can take off his muzzle and show his true power. He walks into the arena with Patro in tow, who has his heel cut. But specifically, Alexis says that his Achilles tendon is cut. So the Achilles tendon is obviously named after the myth, the story of Achilles, in which when he was a child, his mother dipped him into the river Styx to make him invincible, but she held him by his heels. So that is the only vulnerable part on his body, which is why it's called the Achilles tendon, because it's, again, a very crucial part of your body that is used for walking, and if you get injured there, it's very bad. The concept of an Achilles tendon, this specific part of the body still being named after Achilles when he's alive and very obviously not impenetrable. Like, the story of Achilles doesn't seem to apply to the Achilles that we are reading about. So how would you then still have the Achilles tendon? Like, obviously the tendon would still exist, but why would it still be called that if the Achilles in this world doesn't have that same backstory? Then it's just nonsensical. Also, on top of the fact, because in solidarity with Patro, who has been injured, Achilles goes down and cuts his own Achilles tendon and it doesn't kill him. So I'm like, obviously they don't share the same backstory. Why is it still called that? This really gets me. I'm literally tearing my hair out. I don't understand. So he fights for Patro and he's very obviously upset that they tortured his lover. And we find out in this chapter that the reason that Achilles is muzzled is because he breathes Greek fire. You know, like burn everything, Greek fire. This chapter is also funny to me because Zeus, mind you, the guy who said, yes, we're going to allow Achilles to fight without his muzzle, is then surprised that he breathes fire. He gets mad that Achilles burns down the entire Colosseum, essentially. I'm like, was this not a problem in the SGCs of the past? Did he not also do this? Why are we suddenly surprised? The man who breathes fire is going to breathe fire. We flash forward. It is the day before Drex is supposed to have his battle. Alexis tells Karen and Augustus that she doesn't want to die without having had sex at least once. And they're like, okay, this is a very reasonable request for you to make of us. So they take her to the shower and they admit that they love her. Aw, yay, whatever. These evil, cruel men love you. Congrats. It's so funny to me also because these men who talk all this shit about I'm evil and I'm gonna destroy you and you don't even know what's coming. The minute that sex becomes a very real possibility, they're suddenly not cruel and vicious. Suddenly it's, well, when we make love, you little 15-year-old virgin making love? I thought you were this vicious man. All of a sudden we can't say fuck. But rest assured, there is no actual sexual activity other than Alexis being instructed on the proper technique. The concept of this scene is rather funny to me because she's in the shower with the water coming down, and yet she's not waterboarded by doing this. I'll talk about this later, but they also throw in a quote from The Crucible, like Arthur Miller, The Crucible. Frequently throughout this book, they just throw in the most random quotes from like educational resources. Like we get Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, we get Mozart, we get Dostoevsky, and it's always just like very weirdly placed, almost at like a pretense of being sophisticated and like imagery or whatever, but it's so not fitting for the time and place. I think the Crucible quote is the only one that really applies, but again, the concept of Alexis, aka Hercules, getting off Karen, the ferryman of the underworld, and Augustus, a Roman Empire, and all that existing in the same universe as the Crucible? See, that just don't make sense to me. The switch with these male love interests is very fast. The minute that they all start sharing a bed together, suddenly they're just sweet, gentle, loving husbands. Suddenly it's, I love my wife, from the guy at the beginning of the book that had to tell himself, I can't attack her. You had to remind yourself not to attack a woman? Someone who you clearly said you think is beneath you? Wild. Okay. After Drex's fight, we get Karen's fight, which the only thing that you need to know about this is that Karen is injured in the fight rather badly. He gets like acid thrown on him or something. And because of their marriage bond, yeah, you remember that? They share pain. But if you'll recall earlier in the book, when I said that Augustus and Karen jokered their mouths open, Alexis felt nothing. No, because the only time we need her to feel their pain is in this moment. Karen gets the acid thrown on him. Augustus is doubled over in pain. He looks over, Alexis is also in pain. So we get the iconic, who did this to you? I think that's the name of the chapter. Who did this to you? I could be wrong. There is definitely a chapter named Who Did This To You though. So they realize that she can feel the pain and they're like, oh my God, we need to help Karen to stop his pain so that Alexis will be okay again. We then go into Karen's perspective where he's being interrogated, and once again, the book is not proofread. It's repetitive. He says the phrase, it might have been me, 3 times in the same chapter. And this is a moment where I also think it's inconsistent with the voices and the characteristics of these characters, because that's something that Alexis said very frequently in book 1 when she was kind of like out of it. She'd be like, someone spoke, it might have been me, I don't know. So for some reason, Karen, who again is supposed to be this villainous man, truly dark, evil, sinister, is taking on the characteristics of a quirky 20-year-old girl who again already talks like a Disney Channel 12-year-old. So hearing that come from Karen's mouth seems so out of character for him. Like for him to be so disoriented that he can't even tell if he's talking and he's saying like, wait, it might have been me. That doesn't fit with him. Then we get Augustus's fight and he ends it quickly, revealing his true power because supposedly no one knew his true power. And the reason he did that was so that Alexis wouldn't feel pain. Yay. Then we get to Alexis's fight, which is the big thing in the book. Hercules and the 12 laborers. Yay. So she has to fight 8 Nemean lions, which this is really the only semblance of the original Hercules story that I'm seeing, because yes, one of Hercules' labors was that he had to fight a Nemean lion, but it's not biblically accurate still, because the Nemean lion is supposed to have skin that you can't cut. Its skin is essentially armor, and the only way that Hercules was able to defeat it was by shooting an arrow into its mouth.
That was a test. I totally know that Hercules actually defeated the Nemean lion by strangling it to death. I totally just threw in this fake fact, not because I thought it was real, but just to test you to make sure you were paying attention to the video. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I got that from. My bad.
At least that's what I remember. I think, whatever. I'll fact check myself later. So she has to fight 8 of these things, but already she is able to use her spear to cut open their stomachs, so their skin is not impenetrable. She's able to fight and almost gets TKO'd, but she's able to use her power, because her power is that her blood is poison, but also she's able to make a weapon out of her blood? Cool, fine, whatever. That doesn't seem pretty on par with what we knew her powers to be, but okay. So she wins the first round, and she now has to go into her second round, where she will be fighting the Titans that they captured earlier in the book, the ones with the wings. This is where we get the reveal, because Fluffy Jr. is helping her fight. Fluffy Jr. had a lump on his back, which they told us was cancer, if you'll remember, but the lump opens and reveals wings. Fluffy Jr. is part dog, part Pegasus. I'm sorry, a moment of silence, because what does a part dog, part Pegasus look like? And why? Why did he have to be part dog? So together, she mounts Fluffy Jr. and they fly into the air and she defeats the Titans. Yay. Nyx, who was also helping in this fight, was injured and is bleeding profusely. She is still invisible. So while Alexis is having this convo, it looks like she's talking to no one. So Nyx is injured and Alexis heals her because, surprise, not only is her blood poison and she can turn it into a weapon, she can also heal. So this weapon that she made out of her blood, right? She raises it up. Nyx crawls and wraps herself around the weapon, and in the background, it's framed by Fluffy Jr.'s wings. Now, what does that look like in your mind's eye? Yep, you guessed it. The Rod of Asclepius. Everyone freaks out and is like, oh my god, Hercules wields the Rod of Asclepius, which I'm just gonna talk my shit for a second, okay? First of all, they shouldn't be able to identify that this is the Rod of Asclepius because Nyx is still invisible. How are they seeing the snake? As far as they're concerned, she's still holding the same weapon she had earlier. Also weird because the concept of this rod existing is already established. Everyone knows the Rod of Asclepius because it's printed on the side of the medicine vials that the Olympians use. So theoretically, the Greek mythological figure that wields the Rod of Asclepius should exist, and theoretically she shouldn't have it. On top of the fact, which I'm sure many people that are more well versed in Greek mythology than I am will tell you, that the symbol is wrong. The only reason that I knew that the symbol was wrong is because of Percy Jackson. Now, a lot of people, when I mentioned that my knowledge of Greek mythology came from Percy Jackson in my first video, said, oh my god, and even that's not accurate. I'm fact checking this book with my knowledge of Percy Jackson because Percy Jackson got it right. Okay, so let's clear up some misconceptions here. The symbol of the rod with the 2 snakes and the wings that is commonly associated with medicine is actually the Rod of Caduceus. That rod is actually associated with Hermes and not medicine at all. The Rod of Asclepius is the one staff with 1 snake around it, no wings. That is supposed to be attributed to the Greek god of medicine. That is supposed to be the healing symbol. But it was popularized by North American healers or whatever, and that's why it's seen in medicine and on hospitals and stuff. So it bothers me because they call it, first of all, they call it the Rod of Asclepius, but Alexis is sure to point out that Fluffy Jr.'s wings are a part of it. Like, that is part of the symbol, because earlier in the book with that chapter with Ceres that I could not understand, the symbol that she saw was the rod of Caduceus. And she ties it back to this moment where she finds the rod in Nyx and Fluffy Jr.'s wings. So she is misidentifying the rod of Caduceus and says that she has the rod of Asclepius. And Fluffy Jr.'s wings is supposed to be part of like the meaning of why she has this power, because she's like, his wings represent creatures, Nyx represents what is it? Each part of this rod is supposed to signify something about her background, that she's part Olympian, part chthonic, and part creature. So Fluffy Jr.'s wings are integral to this interpretation. We really jump back and forth on what rod she's holding, because it can't be the rod of Caduceus, because we already said that that's not the symbol of healing, on top of the fact that she only has the one snake and the rod of Caduceus has two. And it can't be the rod of Asclepius, because she says that Fluffy Jr.'s wings are a part of the rod. I would understand if we had simply messed it up. Is this on purpose? Are we rage baiting? Because I'm falling for it. Also, while Nyx is actively bleeding out, Alexis prays to God to fix Nyx. I'm like, you are surrounded by gods. Who are you praying to? Alexis wins the round, and she's on her last round, and surprise, she now has to fight Augustus and Karen. Everyone is surprised. Exactly. So they find out that she's blind in one eye because she got a black eye in her good eye and is now unable to see. So they refuse to fight each other, and Augustus makes her hit them with her poison blood. She wins. They are branded. She is taken for interrogation. We learned from Karen's point of view that the interrogations are being used with Patro as the human lie detector. So Alexis is talking to Zeus, and we find out that her plan, I guess, with her confronting him, she has a theory that Zeus arranged for a Titan attack and framed Medusa? Okay, so this is where pieces finally start falling into place. So Zeus admits that the reason, because there's so much I have to explain. Alexis, as a baby, was kidnapped from Hades and Persephone because Titans attacked a Federation meeting that they were at. She was taken away, but then got lost. Alexis accuses him of arranging for the Titan attack at the Federation meeting so that one of his guards or people or whatever could take her and kill her. Why they wanted to kill Alexis, I have no idea. The dude leapt away with baby Alexis, tried to kill her, but again, her blood is poison. So when he tried to cut her chest, the blood got on him and he almost died. So he teleported away to go get help, left her in Montana, to which she was then taken by other people and he lost her. Now, the person that kidnapped Alexis, his name is Vico, something like that. He had an animal protector that was an echidna, and it was Nyx. Yeah, so that's the reason that Nyx is Alexis's companion. She was with the guy that tried to kill Alexis, and then they kind of just got soul bonded. And anyway, so that is how Nyx ended up with Alexis. She came with the guy that was trying to kill her, and then he ended up leaving them both. So Zeus is like, that was your big secret? Yeah, I did all that. Sure. I thought you had something important to say. And honestly, I'm in the same camp as Zeus. I'm like, what does this really have to do with anything? Like, surprise, surprise. The Olympians who forced a marriage law on the Chthonics, the Olympians that forced them into gladiator fights and had been torturing them for the past couple of days, are evil. So Zeus brings in Patro to interrogate Alexis about Medusa. He asks her if she knows anything about Medusa and where she is, and she says no. Patro can tell that she is lying, but still lies to Zeus. Zeus is like, okay, well, you're gonna stay here and be tortured while I go have fun at the orgy. So he leaves with Patro, and Alexis is left with the guards, but she's like, no, I'm girl boss. So Nyx kills the guards for her. She escapes and goes to the symposium because, surprise, Alexis, her magical bulletproof microphone graphing calculator, recorded all of Zeus's confession, and she's now going to play it in front of all of Sparta. Alexis hooks up her calculator to the speakers at the symposium and plays Zeus's confession, which for some reason gets everyone, Olympians included, up in arms. Everyone turns on Zeus and he is forced to flee. Again, the concept of the king of the gods running away, that is a history that no one has ever dared to rewrite. Again, it is not clear on why he wanted Alexis dead as a baby, like what threat she posed. What sort of imminent threat does he pose that I cannot avoid? So there is chaos in the symposium as everyone's like, oh my god, Zeus, betrayal, blah, blah, blah. And Alexis meets up with Karen and Augustus and is like, we have to go back to the villa. Patro knows my secret. She is really concerned about Ceres, which she kind of had been throughout the book. Like there was these weird one-off comments where she'd be like, oh my god, Ceres. And we're like, when did you guys become friends? So she goes back to the villa with Augustus and Karen because surprise, surprise, Ceres is actually Medusa. Alexis is the one that freed her. So we get a flashback. At the beginning of the book, Alexis leapt to the underworld on accident. If you'll remember, I said at the beginning that she heard a woman's voice screaming. Now the chapter at the beginning ended with her passing out, but we actually see that she managed to get up and was walking around the underworld and stumbled upon Medusa in her prison. It is alluded to that Medusa was being sexually abused by her guards, and for some reason, they specify that she had been kept in some kind of like capsule that maintained her age. When she was in prison, she was 21. It is unclear how old she is supposed to be, but for some reason, they really want us to know that she's 21. We just like to keep the women young in this book for some reason. It's almost like we're implying that women after a certain age expire and become undesirable to men for marriage. That would just be my conclusion. With the help of Nyx, who kills the guards, as I mentioned earlier, Alexis frees Medusa. Hades stumbles upon her and is like, we're not supposed to free Medusa. And she's like, what about it? He's like, okay, sounds fair enough. They go back to Crete. So Persephone, Hades, and Charlie all knew about Medusa, and maybe this is up to interpretation, I don't know. When I initially read the chapter where the Chthonics are being escorted to the dungeons, it sounded like Helen and Charlie were being interrogated first. So if Patro was there for the interrogation, he should have known about Medusa from the beginning. Again, maybe I just read the section wrong. It is unclear if Charlie was taken for an interrogation. I don't know. Anyway, we flash forward once again to when Alexis is in the villa and she stumbles upon Ceres in the dungeon. The chapter we read initially cut off before Ceres responded, but we get her response and apparently she's like, yeah, I killed those kids and what about it? So Alexis kills Ceres. She switches them. So Medusa takes her spot. They put on a pink Party City wig and rub dirt on her face and are convinced that it's going to convince Augustus and Karen that this is actually Ceres. To which, a rational reader would say, how could they possibly not tell the difference if they've been torturing this girl all day, every day? Surely, because Alexis herself says their eyes are a different color, they are different heights, surely they will notice. And the only explanation we get is from Helen, who says, men never notice. You've got to be kidding me with this. That's how lazy we're gonna get? We couldn't give any kind of better explanation for why they couldn't tell the difference between them. So this is the real story. Alexis had been harboring Medusa this whole time, which everything else then makes sense because when Ceres/Medusa was talking about fate, it didn't make sense. When they were all freaked out because Helen was in on this plan, we flash forward. Medusa is now on trial. In light of Zeus's confession, they decide to let Medusa go. They're like, you know what? You're not guilty. We're not going to imprison you again. But the stipulation of her freedom is that she has to go to college. Wow. Tell me you didn't have a better setup for book 3 without telling me you didn't have a better setup for book 3. Part of Medusa's sentence is that she has to go to college and study in fate. Specifically, she has to get a master's degree in fate, which is funny to me because supposedly they said at the beginning of the book that this power of fate is so rare that she's like the only one that has it. So how is there an entire field of study dedicated to fate? But then she gets freaked out because she's traumatized from being in prison for so long and she doesn't want to go to the school because it's an Olympian university. She doesn't want to go. So Hades is like, okay, well, she has to go with guards. Guess who they assign to guard Medusa? You got it right. Patro and Achilles. Athena, who is the new head of the Federation, she decrees that Patro and Achilles not only have to be her guards, they have to room with her at the university. This is just lazy. This is just, oh my God, spit in my face. It would be less disrespectful. Medusa
is freaked out and she doesn't want to go because she's also like, these men, I have to be in a room with them. That scares me. So she ropes Alexis into going to the university with them alongside Augustus and Karen. They all have to go to school now. We end this trial with Alexis going back to the villa, and because everything is now safe and fine, they decide it's the perfect opportunity to have sex. Yes, the moment that these two books have all been leading to. All these threats of like, oh, I'm so sexually violent, I'm cruel, I'm gonna destroy you. It all boils down to this moment. And can you guess what kind of depraved things that Karen and Augustus subject Alexis to? Yeah. Missionary. But wait, it does get spicy because it happens on a chair. I was cackling because when I read it, right, at 1 a.m, I was like, maybe like my brain is rotting, but that seemed kind of fast. Like, Karen, this man who said I was gonna pass you back and forth for hours lasted 30 seconds. These men that women are fawning over are one pump chumps. And I'm so sorry to say, because literally it's like Karen gets Alexis. He's like, okay, and now Augustus's turn. And then once he finishes, they then are like, oh, I'm so tired. Time to cuddle. This is the depraved stuff that they were talking about. And this is why I really struggle with these like dark romances, because at the end of the day, like, it's all bark and no bite. I'm sorry, this is just so funny to me. I have seen more spice in a Colleen Hoover novel. I've seen them last longer in a Colleen Hoover novel. Like, the one crazy adventurous thing is just that it's in a chair and Augustus has a piercing. Like, that is it. As if this like wildly unsatisfying scene wasn't bad enough, which, don't take that the wrong way. If it was like even slightly more quote unquote satisfying, it would not have warranted this whole book. The book ends with Patro and Achilles harassing Medusa, and for some reason Patro is taking an interest in Medusa. You heard me right. We are setting up book 3 to have a romantic relationship, a marriage contract, arguably, between Patro, Achilles, and Medusa. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God? It's disrespectful in one of many ways. First and foremost, because Medusa, in an interview, Jasmine Moss said that she was really interested in the character of Medusa because she is such a figure of feminism and people have reclaimed her, especially with sexual assault survivors. Medusa holds a lot of weight, especially in today's society. And she was like, I want Medusa to have a happy ending. She said something along those lines. So the fact that Medusa's one and only happy ending can be achieved through marriage to men? What are we saying? What are we saying? What are we saying? Trad wife propaganda, yes or no? Also disrespectful because Patro and Achilles, the most famously gay people in Greek mythology, have to get married to a woman. Disrespectful in and of itself, but also the implication being that Patro actually likes her. That man has eyes only for Achilles. No one else. No one has ever dared be so audacious with a retelling of Greek mythology as these books, because Patro and Achilles, like, they only ever, in every iteration, have eyes for each other. Yeah, Achilles might have, wined and dined a few women, but they love each other. There's no room for a third person. I was so up in arms when I finished this book. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. There is no way that that is what we're setting this up for. Patro, Achilles, and Medusa. Make of that what you will. But that is the end of the book. I've been recording for at least 4 hours. So now to just wrap up my final thoughts and critiques about this book. It's bad. The formatting is off. It's obviously not proofread. There are a ton of contradictions that could have been easily fixed if you just read the book. There's a lot of continuity errors, not to mention that there are certain points in the book that, in my perspective at least, feels like it was very obviously written by the editor, and certain points that are written by the author, and they just kind of battle each other on the page. As I mentioned in my review of book 1, the homophobia is still present. It does not go away. Even though we do get to see more of Achilles and Patro's romantic side, they're still reduced to their sexuality. On top of the fact that Alexis also still went on her homophobic rant to them, and, mischaracterize asexual people, which for some reason continues to be a present theme in these books I don't understand. Now for the feminism, which I argue is the most concerning part of this book, and what I would argue warrants a serious conversation. So I'm gonna boldly say that this book reads like a dog whistle for the trad wife lifestyle. Alexis is a character who believes wholeheartedly that she is liberated and thinks that her identity as a woman is not tampered by her marriage. And yet you have these men that she's married to two that truly do not believe in her own skills. Literally, up until the end of the book, they have to force themselves to hold back and let her act as a free agent. There are so many instances where they have to force themselves not to handle situations for her and let her make her own choices because their initial reaction is to jump in. Not to mention the fact that she never got married for love. She essentially just learned to accept her circumstances because when she gets married to these men, she is not happy whatsoever. And even when given the opportunity to have a way out, she chooses to work through it, which I don't know about you, but to me communicates a conservative mindset that when you marry someone, you marry them for life. You don't just divorce. Not to mention that given the religious undertones of this book, I don't think it would be a stretch to say that Alexis's main motivation for not getting divorced is because she believes that it's a sin. She thinks that capital G God won't be happy with her if she divorces her husbands that abuse her. So even when presented with a way out, she doesn't take it. She simply convinces herself that she loves them, which is a classic instance of Stockholm Syndrome. She is under the illusion that she is liberated and has more freedom than other women when the circumstances around her are still determined by the men in her life. She believes that she is better than other women just because her cage is bigger. She truly does not see the box that she lives in and still thinks that she's able to roam freely while blatantly ignoring the borders of her enclosure. On top of the fact that she believes that insulting and attacking men is what makes her an independent woman. She says they should be seen and not heard, and that sexually harassing men is a part of the female experience. This is not the feminist experience that we should want to be circulating in the world, especially when you have so many of the positive reviews on this book only talking about the love interest, saying things like, "Oh, I wish I had a man this obsessed with me. I wish a man would crawl on his knees for me." In any other instance, I think this would be comedic. No one would actually take these things seriously. But in this book, it's reinforced by the commentary that men are sexual objects. The only time the male love interests become redeemable is when they are entirely submissive to Alexis. And the only reason that they're viewed as redeemable is because this is the only time they're allowed to show emotion other than rage. They are essentially wild animals that Alexis tames, and they're only allowed to have dimension as characters when it strengthens their relationship to Alexis. For example, the only character trait we learn about Karen that has nothing to do with his status as this evil war person that just kills people is that he plays piano. This is something we learn about him in book 1, which honestly, I forgot until they mentioned it almost at the end of this book. And the only reason it becomes relevant is because Alexis and Karen bond over piano things. He uses piano metaphors to express his love to her, and that is the only way that we get to see this other side of him. This is the only time we're allowed to see him existing outside of his role as this villainous man and Alexis's husband. Otherwise, and it's not a stretch to say that her love interest lives only revolve around her. It truly comes across as a man does not exist outside of his wife, which is obviously just taking a lot of the experiences of women and gender bending them, because the experience of a lot of women is that, oh, we don't exist outside of our husbands. But I don't necessarily like this portrayal because by gender bending these societal roles, by taking the suffering of women and just pushing it onto the men, that doesn't communicate feminism to me. Like anytime they say something bad towards her love interest when arguably it's unwarranted, I kind of feel bad for them. And you know it's bad when you have me defending the same men that cut out a dude's eyeballs for looking at his wife. Like, these people are objectively crazy. If I defend any of them at any point, it's literally me just like picking the lesser of two evils. Overall, this book is an insult to readers. It's incredibly amateur. It reads on a juvenile level with the most random references to Marie Shelley, Dostoevsky, Mozart. Again, to seem more sophisticated than it actually is. The transitions between thoughts and what the characters are saying are non-existent, and it seems like there's an attempt at stream of consciousness where our main character Alexis is flipping back and forth between the present and the past, but it fails miserably. There is gruesome repetition and nonsense descriptions like smells like rage and tastes like tragedy. Explain what those things mean quickly. And overall, this book just lacks craftsmanship. Nothing about the way that this was written communicates to me that this is someone that knows how to write. Not to sound like Ego from Ratatouille, but I do believe that everyone is capable of writing, right? Like, that is a skill that we all have. but not everyone is a writer. There's a very specific way that people tell stories. There's a very specific way that we put it down on paper, that we breathe life into characters, that we convey these stories. It's not something that is easy, and it's not something that everyone can do. It requires craftsmanship. It requires practice, study, research. At the very least, it requires you to not list out sentences instead of writing a paragraph. So needless to say, I did not like this book. I don't recommend it. I think the whole series is garbage. It's very poorly written and a very obvious cash grab. I'm sure the book got popular, very similar to the Scorpius book, where it got a lot of hype on the internet for, I don't know, romance, having weird possessive men characters. And then when the book actually published, a lot of people pre-ordered it just based on the hype. And then by that time it was too late because the publishers were like, hey, we see you're making money. Now imagine if you made us money. And then from there, we have the book deal that led to this cluster. So that's gonna be it for me. I am so tired. It's 8 p.m. I think I started at 4. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you agree, disagree with anything I had to say. Let me know if anything about what I said about this book met your expectations. Have you read any of the books in this series? I'm asking genuinely. If you have read the book and you like it, I need you to tell me why. Because right now I don't understand, and I've asked so many people, and it's so funny because the minute I asked, hey, can you explain to me why you like the book? Everyone just like disappears. I'm like, it's okay. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm asking a question. I would like to have a conversation. Please tell me. No one wants to tell me, which is fine, whatever, I don't care. But if you do like the book, let me know. I would like to know some reasoning because I've read the reviews and so far it's only, oh my God, I love men that are obsessive. That's it. Be sure to leave a like, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already. Be sure to follow me on all my social media at Listen to Kristen on TikTok, Instagram, and BlueSky. Also, if you want to get my live reactions, I did post some updates on Goodreads so you can get my more specific critiques. And maybe at this point of the video, you're like, Kristen, you're talking a big game, but who are you to criticize this book? You don't have any books out. You're not an author. Who are you to speak? Actually, I am an author. If you haven't heard, I'm coming out with my debut children's series that comes out January 2026 called The Magical Morrisons. You can check out my links in the description below to pre-order a copy if you would like. Otherwise, be sure to add it to your list on Goodreads, and you can actually read an advanced copy of Love Potion Commotion, which is on NetGalley. This is a series I'm very proud of. It's very close to my heart. It ties a lot of my cultural heritage into it. It's magical, very like Wizards of Waverly Place, Sabrina the Teenage Witch-esque, and it does talk about some more serious social topics. You know, as a child that dealt with anxiety, I put a lot of my experiences into the book, as well as just the pressures of, you know, growing up, trying to fit in and making friends. So yeah, be sure to check those out. I worked very hard. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it was worth my pain and suffering. I'm sure my hair is gone in some points. I think I got a bald spot from the sheer stress of this whole situation. I gave up a lot to make this video, so absolutely be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share this video, and let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Hopefully it's not nearly as painful.